All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Did you have a good lunch? Use your discounts at the vendors around here? Yeah, we went to Moe's, so it was great. Well, I'm really excited you're here, and we just want to get a little bit of feel before we even jump in. A few of you said you're using marketing automation right now, and when we say marketing automation, what does that mean? So not necessarily an email service provider, social media, maybe a different provider that you have landing pages, but all encompassing. So that may be a Pardot, a Marketo, a HubSpot, something like that. So I'm interested to see who is really focused in their company on social media. Raise of hands. All right. How about maybe marketing or email marketing? Okay, good. And overall, what if you're just kind of handle all the marketing? Nice. All right. And how many of you worked with sales teams? Okay, cool. Well, good. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. And please, we have a small group here, so don't feel like, we're just up here lecturing to you. Feel free to raise your hands, ask us questions. We'll leave time for Q&A at the end, but we want to hear from you. So we're excited to have you. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. So we know that you want to probably succeed with marketing automation, whether you've started, you're pretty far into it, or you're just thinking about it. So today we're going to talk about that, how to succeed with marketing automation. So you're thinking, who are these people? Whoa, hold on, back up. Well, I'm Katie Mellick at KTMel on Twitter. So feel free to tweet me during the presentation, tweet me afterwards if you'd like to connect. And I have worked for Pardot for 2 years now. So I actually help onboard our clients, and I help them succeed during their first period, starting off with marketing automation. And this is?
I'm Matt Sweezy. I work with Pardot as well. And I've been with Pardot about 6 years. I'm our head evangelist, so I primarily do primary research and writing and speaking. So I wrote the book called Marketing Automation for Dummies and speak around the world on this topic on a regular basis. So you can reach me at msweezy or Miss Wheezy, depends on how you want to read it. So.
Awesome. Yep, Matthew's a great speaker, so get excited. All right, so 3 things we're going to start off with that you really need to remember to better succeed with marketing automation. That's 1, step back. 2nd, slow down. And 3rd, focus on steps. So we're going to go through those. First off is step back. That's a broad term. What do we mean by step back? Well, we want to review your current processes. So Sarah here works for a Southern Institution of Schools, and she handles the social media. And then she's got someone else handling email marketing, and probably a few other folks in the organization doing disparate things. Well, what processes are you doing right now? How are you sending out your tweets? How are you posting to Facebook? When are you sending your emails? How is your sales team interacting with marketing? What does that look like?
So let's get a little bit more specific. All right, so first off, we talked about the different things that everyone's using. So let's go back through this. Social media, raise your hand. Who has forms that they do any type of lead conversion? Raise your hand. You have to do some type of lead capture. Who has a CRM? Anyone needs a CRM, right? We've got to pass leads to the sales team. Who does emails? Who has a website? Right, so I just want to see how many times I can get you to raise your hands. Thanks for playing along. But anyways, the point being is a lot of these different things are built one way, and now we have to look at them in a different way. So let me walk you through this concept. All right, so go back to the beginning of the first time that you got a website, probably about 1995. The evolution then went as follows. You got a website, then you started doing SEO. Then you said, all right, now I've got people coming to my website, and now I've got to get them to convert. So then you put up a form. But your form was just something you probably built through your website platform or had your developer build for you. And then what we usually do is email you or dump those things onto a file. Then you would have to take that file, and then you would go put that in your email tool and email that out. And then what you would do is go back and look at that email open rate, take that and make a sub list, and then go put that inside your CRM and say, here are the people that open the email sales team, these are your hot leads. Does that sound like something you used to do back in the day, or maybe now? Right? So that's a process that you might work from. Right? Now let's imagine another process. You say, hey, we do social media. So now what you might do is you might have all your fans and friends and followers and subscribers that you have on social media. You then might put out some type of content. Who does content marketing? right? So then you might be driving them to some type of landing page. And now what you want to do is then get those people, pass them through the same funnel. But now what we've come to realize is all those people that fill out that form, they're not necessarily sales ready. If we pass those right to the sales team says, hey, marketing, those leads suck. And you say, no, you just suck as a salesperson. Right? So it's the standard battle that we both have with marketing and sales. I usually get more jokes, more laughs on that joke. But anyways, point being is if those are your processes, and you go into a marketing automation platform which has all of the capabilities to do all these different things on a single platform, such as a marketing automation platform that we're talking about would have the ability to build forms, build landing pages, do lead scoring, be able to send emails, be able to publish out social tweets. And you take all of the existing frameworks that you have and try to dump them onto the existing platform, it won't work. Because what you have to realize is this platform, a lot of the things that you do now, is such as you might set up a custom code on that landing page. So every time someone fills out that form, it adds another marker on a different column so you know where that lead source was. And then you go to build your new form and you try to do that exact same thing, you don't need to because that's already being done by something else inside of a tool natively. So what we say is whiteboard out your processes. We mean from start to finish. We mean where do you create your content? Where do you host your content? A lot of times you're going to be hosting that content in a marketing automation platform that's going to be giving you a specific URL. So now you don't need to use Bitly every time you want to upload content, make a URL, and track who engages with that piece of content. Right? So if you whiteboard out your entire process, it's going to teach you two things. One, it's going to show you all the steps you're currently going through, but more importantly, why do you do those things? Right? Why do I ask for 15 questions on a form? Usually we ask for 15 questions because of that argument we have with sales. We pass that lead over and they say, those leads suck. You need to qualify them better. And so we say, all right, we'll use the best technology we have and we'll ask more questions. Because if you answer what's your buying timeline, you're really going to tell us the truth. And I can only pass over leads that have a specific buying timeline. See where I'm going with this? Instead, what you're going to be looking for is you don't need to ask those questions. Now you're going to have different information from a marketing automation platform that can pick up things like behavioral intent, right? What was the search term that they used? Did they search for the term pricing? Did they go to my pricing page? How many pages in total? What content? Did they read my buyer's guide? And so it's all going to be connected. So if you try to take that existing process that you have, dump it in, you're really going to be making a mess of things. What you really need to do is whiteboard it all out from start to finish. Every little aspect. Why do we do the things that we do? How do we qualify a lead? What do I need to actually qualify a lead? And if you whiteboard those out, you'll figure out the whys, and you won't be replicating a lot of the bad habits that we currently have. So that's specifically what we mean when we say slow down and whiteboard it out. Oh yeah, second, define your goals. So this is another thing that we really, really stress. So we've worked with hundreds and hundreds of different clients to get them up and off the ground. So when you start getting a marketing automation platform, we'll talk about this in a second with the term shiny object syndrome, right? So everyone here is a marketer, right? So we all have ADD. It's a pretty standard fact. We're all very easily distracted by shiny objects. You want to know a very fun fact about marketers? So check this out. So ExactTarget does this survey, or does this publication called Subscriber, Fans, and Followers. Has anyone read it? All right, maybe, okay. So you should go check it out. But anyways, what they did is they did a research study, and they said, all right, marketers, when there is a new platform that comes out, what we want to know, what we wanted to find out with our research was who were the first people to adopt it? Was it marketers or was it consumers? Every time there's a new channel, the first people to adopt it are marketers, right? Why is that? Because we're always trying to go for that quick win. We're trying to go, plow that field where the soil is the richest. Where are we going to get the biggest return, the biggest bang for our buck? How can we beat everybody else to that? And a lot of times that leads us down multiple different paths at one time versus focusing on one core idea. When you start implementing a marketing automation platform, that's going to be very key that you don't get into that because these platforms have a lot of things that they can do. So we just talked about some very basic things, right? The idea of lead scoring, the idea of building forms without having to have your IT department do them, the idea of tracking what search terms an individual did and tying them to their record for better segmentation, right? You're going to get into more advanced things, such as now you can take that information and dynamically change your website for each individual at any time in the point of the buying cycle, for each individual company. You can have all these massively successful campaigns by tweaking little things and using new tools and technologies. If you walk into a platform and you see all these shiny objects, you're going to start going at them all the wrong way, and you're not going to focus on a core goal. So here's one other point we need to make. You're going to be investing money, right? Does anyone here not have a boss? All right. maybe you're your own boss, or you're self-employed, or you're just awesome. I don't know which of those three, but I'm hoping that you're just awesome. So anyways, so here you go. When we invest this money, we've now got to show somebody that we got a return out of our investment. We're going to have to say, hey, boss, you signed off for me to spend X thousands of dollars. Now I've got to prove to you the value that that had. Is that a standard scenario that we're all going to face? If you want to do that, your best chance at proving value is to pick a very specific short goal, what we call a quick win. What's the highest amount of value you can get out of this tool in the shortest amount of time? And that's a quick win. Stick to that goal. Now, this goal is very easy to find out. What is the reason you went to get a marketing automation platform? Figure out that question. It's usually a couple of basic things. One is visibility. I want to know exactly individuals and what they're doing. Or two, I want to make it easier for me to launch the campaigns and track the engagement of my campaigns. Or three, I want to be able to prove the value. Or four, I want to speed up the leads that I need to generate. Whatever it was, stick to that goal and make it very specific. If you want to speed up the amount of leads that you're generating, figure out exactly how to do that and stay to that goal. Don't try to work on reporting. Don't try to work on all the dynamic content. Just work on how to improve that lead stage flow. Does that make sense? So pick a goal, make sure it's the quickest way that you can show value and stick to it.
So in that, when you're defining your goals and looking at what you want to drive towards, whether that be long-term or your quick wins, like Matthew said, we're going to avoid this shiny object syndrome. I have plenty of clients start off day one, I just want to send an email, I want to send a tweet out of this platform. Hold on, what's your goal in that? Because you're not going to get anywhere if you're just looking at the tools and not driving towards your goals. So with that, alignment. You need to step back and align with your team. What does that mean? Well, you need to define an owner of this platform. And this platform, like Matthew was saying, is going to draw together a lot of your different assets, such as social media, marketing, your forms with email marketing and such. So assign that owner and make sure they know the vision and your goals.
Oh, sorry, back to me. All right, cool. So once you have an owner, right, it's very important that you have an owner so everyone knows where to go. Second is the rollout that you're going to go through. These things are very big tools, and they might say, hey, it's just a single term, it's a single tool, but it's going to touch every facet of your marketing organization, and it's going to touch your sales team. So you need to figure out, how do I roll this out, right? And so there's a couple of different ways to do this. Here's a good example of how we've seen things go wrong. We see a company go in, and now remember, who has a sales team in their organization? All right, so a couple of us. If we go in and we go to mess with the salesperson's thing, what happens? We're going to tell, hey, salespeople, we're going to mess with your CRM, we're going to mess with your software, we're going to mess with your processes. They freak out, and rightly so. That is their process, right? They have to go hit quota. They have a process in place that they follow, and you're about to mess with it. You're going to really piss them off. And what's going to happen is they're not going to buy in, and they're not going to do what you want. Hence, you're not going to be able to get the full value out of the platform that you need to get. So when you roll it out, figure out what's your rollout strategy. If your goal is to increase lead flow, that does not involve the sales team. Yes, a platform that's a marketing automation platform has the ability to pass leads over in real time. It has the ability to show the salesperson every lead that they've gotten and everything that lead has done. What web pages they looked at, what search terms they used, what content they downloaded, when was the last time they were on the website. Very creepy data. But if you start pumping all that right over to the salespeople, they're going to freak out. Right? So don't do it. Figure out what is your goal and stick to it, and then follow the rollout plan based on what your goal is. If your goal is to improve the sales cycle and increase revenue, that might mean getting buy-in. Let's go to the next one. Look at that. Getting buy-in from the sales team and from other people in the organization. Now, to get the buy-in, you have to start early, especially if you're going to be affecting the CRM, which is the salespeople's home. Right? So get them all together. Well, don't get them all together. That's a bad idea. Get your favorite ones together, the most vocal ones and maybe the managers, right? And what you need to do is sit them down and say, all right, here's what we want to do. Now, let me know what your problems are. How can I help out with those problems? Would this XYZ, giving you every lead, every detail, make it easier for you to identify who the hot leads are, helping you close more business? And they will say, yes, that's a great idea. How do we do that? Let's do that tomorrow. You're like, great, we're going to roll out this marketing automation platform. Why don't you just say marketing automation platform? Because they will say, it has nothing to do with me, because it says marketing and it's not sales. So really understand how you can help them. The next thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to realize that during this rollout process and when you're setting up the marketing automation tool, you're going to need to get buy-in from the salespeople themselves, right? Who sends a lot of emails? You might not think about it, but sales sends a lot of emails, right? They send them from their Gmail or their Outlook accounts. And those emails are very effective at what they do. You are going to help them by automating some of those steps and sending out some of those emails automatically through things called nurturing programs. If you want sales to use those nurturing programs, such as if you pass them a lead and that lead goes cold, and they then have the ability to add that lead onto a nurturing program that you set up for them, they're only going to do that if they had buy-in to what that program is sending. That means you ask them, what are the most effective emails? What's the most effective content? What is your cadence? Cadence meaning, what is your follow-up cadence? So when I used to sell, we had a 2-2-12. I would call, leave a voicemail, wait 2 more days, go and call, no voicemail, drop an email, wait 12 days till I started the cycle again. So when we built our first nurturing emails to support the sales team, we followed that cadence exactly. We went in there and then we found out what emails they send and what they say, and then we automated those steps. We didn't just build our own and think that they would use it. We got their buy-in and they used it, and it was super successful. So make sure you know who the owner is going to be so they can coordinate all of this. Make sure you figure out what your rollout plan is going to be, how you're going to roll it out and when and to whom. And then you get buy-in from all of those departments in a very specific way.
Great. And with this first step of stepping back, I actually have a story about a client that started about a month and a half ago with marketing automation. They were so excited. This client is spread pretty thin. She's traveling to trade shows all the time and hired an agency to help her with a lot of her marketing campaigns. Well, they came in and they just went wild. I'm going to create as many email templates and forms and set up everything I can, all these shiny objects. Well, in the end, they went to launch a campaign and thought, these don't connect. These aren't driving towards anything. So we backed up, stepped back, and said, okay, let's go for some quick wins and short-term goals in the fact that I know she was going to a conference in about a week. Well, it's very quick to set up a form and a landing page and have her take her laptop to the conference and actually have her prospects come up to her, so people that would potentially buy her product, and put their email in her computer. Now, making sure it's on kiosk mode so we don't cookie them and track them, but that's a whole different thing. And she's got these email addresses. So that's the first quick win we got to. Second is that she was able to take all these email addresses, be able to easily put them on a list, and follow up with her marketing through a drip program of 3 emails. Simple 3 emails, making sure that she stayed top of mind with these people that she met at the conference and following up. And therefore, she could really see where she was going with that and continue in her long-term goals of getting these people to buy her product or buy more of her product. So that was a story of, they didn't step back at first, they just went wild, but they stepped back, they reviewed, what are we driving towards? And they were able to really start succeeding with marketing automation and are still doing so.
Great, just to review real quick. So make sure you review your current processes. I can't stress that enough. So I wrote Marketing Automation for Dummies. There's a whole chapter in understanding your current process and why you do the things you do, right? So that is key. Next is make sure you have clear defined goals. What are we working towards? Like Katie just said, if her goal was to be able to capture more leads and nurture them effectively to take time off of her plate, that was a super quick, easy way to do that. That did not require an agency creating 15 emails and creating 16 landing pages and then playing with all the dynamic content features. It really was very basic and accomplished very awesome things very quickly. Quick win. She can show value off of that. And then finally, make sure your team is aligned. Make sure everyone knows what we're driving towards and then the plan to roll that out. I can't stress that one enough either. Especially if you don't need sales, don't involve them just yet. Wait until you need to touch their stuff before you need to get their buy-in. If not, you can freak them out, or they're just going to bug you until you get it, right? And then that might screw your whole roll-up plan out. So,
all right.
Food for thought.
So second is slowing down. You're all on SuperDrive. A lot of you are halfway listening as you're on your computer right now doing a million different things, so slow down. When you start off with anything, especially marketing automation, you're going to need to slow down. Why do you need to slow down? Well, you have to set a technical foundation. I'm going to explain a little bit about that, as well as start small. Don't jump and fall off. Go ahead, start small, and again, have those quick wins to accomplish your long-term goals. So what do I mean by technical foundation? There's stuff that you have to set up when you get started, and this is very important when you're coming over. Email authentication. What does that mean? That means that you're going to be sending emails with your marketing automation platform to recipients that have inboxes. Well, those inboxes try to protect against fraud emails, so you need to make sure you authenticate your email, your marketing automation platform to send those emails on your behalf. Therefore, you're hitting the inbox before you hit the spam box. If you go too fast, you're not going to even hit their inbox and they're not going to get your message. Tracking code. This is great and really fun. When my clients place the tracking code on their website, a lot of you are probably familiar with Google Analytics. You get to see who's coming to your site. And once we actually cookie them and associate their email with their browser, we can see that Chelsea is on our website on Thursday at 1:30. So pretty neat there. Make sure you get that going or you can't track that. Cname. What's a Cname? Well, a marketing automation platform is going to create URLs. Those may be for your email preference center page or for a tweet you're sending out or for a file you're hosting. So you're going to want to make sure that's branded. It may start off as go.pardot.com. Well, Pardot wants to be the magic behind the scenes and allow you to use go.yourcompany.com. So that's important. If people hit those landing pages and they say go.pardot.com, your branding is going to be thrown off. Templates, email templates we've talked a lot about. You're probably going to want to set some of those up and have strategic content. And then education. It takes a while to learn a platform. You don't want to just jump in, just like when you started on Facebook, however many years ago. You might have just started jumping in, but as a business, you need to have a plan and get educated on what buttons to press and where to go. So use people like myself and other teams at those companies to help you out. And then testing. You probably want to test on your staff or your most engaged consumers first. Make sure that that looks good before you start sending out to a bunch of folks.
Cool. Start small. A couple of these things. One is IP warming. So who's pretty in-depth at email marketing? Who uses email marketing? Let's just start there, right? Pretty much everyone. It's ubiquitous, right? So as Katie said, when you send an email, it's going off an IP address. You don't own that IP address, but what you do own is your domain name, such as my website might be matthewsweezy.com. But if I send emails through a marketing automation platform, they are the ones sending the emails. And as Katie said, fraud prevention. So now that IP address, which is not my IP address, but it says it's coming from me, you see how it's a disconnect. So that spam filter is going to say, wait, this says it's from Matthew, but it's from another IP. So we need to make sure those two connect, and that's what email authentication is. The next thing is IP warming. That IP address that you're sending from actually has a score. So this is another way that the spam filters can actually see what is spam and what is not spam. So one thing you'll need to look at is how are your emails being sent from your marketing automation platform. They all have an IP address. There's two ways. There's a pooled IP, which if you're a smaller company, will be a pooled IP. If you have a larger company or a larger sending volume, you very well may have a dedicated IP address. If you have a dedicated IP address, the way a spam filter is going to help determine if that's actually a legitimate email or not, or if it's a spam trap or if it's a spammer, is they're going to see what was the past sending history on that IP address. Did they send no emails yesterday and 5 million today? That is a key identifier of a spammed email. So what you need to do is warm up that IP address. So start your sending and grow it small up to that 5,000 a day or 5 million a day, depending on what your email volume is. That is a natural progression. SEO operates the same way. If you just post a bajillion things today, Google says that's not natural, that's not a human, that's not you. You were trying to game the system. Does that make sense? So that's going to help increase your email open rates and getting in the inbox. Second, drip nurturing. Drip nurturing is probably the sexiest thing and the number one reason why people get marketing automation. It's the concept of I can have a dynamic path that any individual can go down. So parameters are such. Joe comes to the website, looks at my pricing page, downloads the VP Buyer's Guide. I now know it's Joe, I know he's a VP, and I know where he is in the buying cycle. For me to get him into a sales-ready state, I'm going to use something called nurturing, which means I can be relevant to Joe and everyone else at scale. This is the whole concept of marketing automation at its core. I can take and set up different parameters and say, all right, in 3 days, anytime this scenario happens, send that person this piece of content. Depending on what they do with that content, then do this next marketing action automatically. And depending on what they do with that, then do this or this. And you can build these trees. So depending on what someone does, it dynamically takes them down the best possible path to get them in the most sales-ready state quickly. Makes sense, right? Here's where most people go wrong. They say, all right, I'm going to whiteboard out this entire nurturing campaign, and it's going to be 15 weeks long and 200 steps. And they do that before they've ever run a nurturing campaign in the first place. And so then they take 2 months to build out this giant program, this giant campaign. Where'd they go wrong? Well, the first part is they're operating in abstractions of reality. Anybody ever read a book called Future of One-to-One by Peppers and Rogers? It came out in 1993. Awesome. It's a great book, right? And so I stole that line from Don Peppers. It's called Operating in Abstractions, Not Reality. All marketers, we operate in abstractions. We need to operate in the reality of the situation. Reality is, we don't know how effective that campaign is going to be if we build out all 15 steps now. Now let me break it down for you. A nurturing campaign has time pauses. So email 1 goes out, then there's a 6-day pause, or however many days you want. Then email 2, or whatever, action number 2, and then a third one. That's 12 days. How long does it take you to build an email template? A couple of hours, max, maybe an hour, if that, right? So think about this instead. Build out your first couple steps of that nurturing program, and then see how effective they were. You have plenty of time before you need to build the next steps. If you build those next steps without that intelligence, you're operating in an abstraction, not the reality. You're not actually going to make the best possible outcome. You're going to design a campaign that you think is going to work, but it's not necessarily going to actually work the best. So optimize as you go. You have time to do it, and you have a tool that will allow you to do it. Does that make sense? And then finally, the same thing with this is the gradual rollout, right? You can get into lots of crazy things inside of these campaigns. There's the term the one-click website, or the no-click website. Has anyone ever heard of this term? It's essentially what happens when you have full visibility and transparency and knowledge on an individual before they touch your website, and you then have the technology to dynamically change completely that experience for that one person. So we used to use Pearls to do this. Anybody remember Pearls, personalized URLs? So I would send me a postcard, and it would say MatthewSweezy.com. I would go to MatthewSweezy.com, and that's how I know that experience was tailored to that person. Now we can do this all dynamically at scale, right? So that whole concept of the zero-click website is way down the road. If you shoot for that, you're going to miss your small goals and you're going to miss the quick wins. Optimize for the small things. And then as you go, then step into those bigger programs, those more crazy ideas, and then eventually into that zero-click website. Sorry.
Awesome. No, that's great. So now that we're about halfway through, a lot of you at the beginning...
Oh, that is my little pony, by the way.
No, that's Parney, and it was bought, and Salesforce actually sells those out of vending machines. And she travels around the world. She's in Australia right now. That's on the Beltline. But now that we're about halfway through, a couple of you raised your hands at the beginning and said you use marketing automation. How many of you would say you use marketing automation now? Okay. Great. Okay, great. Just want to make sure, I know we can go down a path and want to make sure everyone's getting value here. So please, like I said, don't just sit there. This is a small enough crowd where you can come and, raise your hand if you don't know what we're talking about and it's going over your head. Please, honestly. So with all this and slowing down, and I know being at a digital conference, a lot of us are on hyperdrive. But if you're on hyperdrive and you're all disconnected and unfocused, you're not going anywhere. So again, slow down, whether you're starting with marketing automation or just starting in general, or you're very experienced with years and years of experience. So with this, I see a lot of clients coming in with marketing automation, and a year or so ago, I actually saw a ton get started even before they talked to me and got implemented. They started sending emails. Not a good thing. Their email deliverability was not good, and they didn't even have good content where they didn't have a call to action in their email. No one was going to click through. It wasn't providing any value. So even if it did get to the inbox, they just jumped on the bandwagon and started sending with no real goal or purpose at all, and definitely not a technical foundation and not starting small.
Yeah, we can't stress enough, right? The term marketing automation, everyone's going to say that their marketing automation platform is easy to use. You'll hear that term if you start looking around. Easy to use does not mean no setup required, right? They're two very different things. So make sure you understand that and follow all the technical implementation steps to setting up a tool. And then finally, just really start small. And I can't stress, Katie said the education piece. You really have to get educated. This is a completely different way of marketing and thinking than you've ever done before because of the connectivity and how things work together. And so you really need to understand that tool that you operate in and how to operate it efficiently and effectively.
Great. So third is focus on your steps. And Vincent van Gogh said that great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. So we've been talking about all of this, and what are kind of 3 ways that people usually go towards marketing automation? Well, we're going to start by talking about one of nurturing.
Nurturing. All right, this is my favorite thing to talk about. All right, so the concept of nurturing is really, it's simple. Let's take something that's not mature and mature it automatically, right? It's pretty basic. So we all generate leads of some type. We all need to have a sale of some type of conversion. So how do we get that person into that state? And the idea here is how do we do that at scale, right? We might be working with hundreds, thousands, millions of customers, people, prospects, leads, and there's only a couple of us in a marketing department. So we need to figure out how to do that at scale. Nurturing. So let's click to the next one. Right? Nurturing is very specific. Anyone that's been doing email marketing for a long time, I want you to take everything you know about email marketing and you flush it down the toilet. Because here's why I'm going to say that. It's a completely different mentality and a way of doing business. Why are you looking at nurturing in the first place? Because your email open rates are an average of 5% on a click-through rate. Right? Nurturing is a completely different type of email. The difference is one-to-many and one-to-one. Right? So the reason that most email marketing programs, this is how we usually work. Even when we do segmentation, we're still sending one email to a group of people, even though it's a very large group. Nurturing is not. Nurturing is sending one email to one person at one time. All right, let me do a quick quiz. Which emails that you send out of your company have the highest engagement rate of all time? Where do they come from? Exactly. They come from an individual, and they come from your Gmail and your Outlook. Right? If you go and look in your sent folder, those have the highest engagement of any emails your company sends. Why? It's because they're personal. Now, what's the difference? You can send them from anywhere, but the difference is when they get in front of that person, when they get to that email inbox, that person sees them in a stream of things. How does that person have the ability to pick those things out? Right? Why do those get open and others don't? It's simple. Right? The subject line, who they come from, first off. So when you're doing nurturing, make sure you have those emails come from an individual. And then the subject line, you have to write to an individual. This is a one-to-one type of marketing. If you write those subject lines like you write your mass email marketing subject lines, you're going to have the exact same engagement. Right, so let's talk about the next thing. Well, the content. So inside of that content, the second thing is a stage-based concept. Right? Let me give you a quick story. So I was at a wedding, and I was sitting there next to this girl, and we started talking, and I asked her what she does, standard question. And she goes, oh, I do email marketing. I was like, cool, I didn't know a little bit about that. And I was like, what tool do you use? And this is ExactTarget had just purchased this time. She goes, I use ExactTarget. I was like, cool. She goes, I don't like it. And I was like, awkward. I work for them. So how can I help out with this? And she goes, well, it doesn't do good enough segmentation. I said, all right, tell me what you mean. She goes, well, I want, when someone opts out, to automatically put them on a different list and send them different stuff. I was like, well, that's not segmentation. That's called automation. You need a marketing automation tool. No, I don't. I need segmentation. I was like, all right, you're the boss. So anyways, now she's bought a marketing automation tool. Here's the point. If I sent her an email at that stage and I said, Pardot is the best marketing automation platform, knowing she needs marketing automation, would she open that email? Exactly. It's because the content I'm sending her is not tailored to the stage that she is in. Right? You need to understand that the stage people are in and send them content to that stage. That content is your subject line and that content is the body. Right? The email templates that you use in nurturing are very different. So let's go back to those most opened emails, right? So here's another question. Have you ever written a full HTML email to a single individual in your life? Have you ever received one? So all right, so here we go. So no one in this room has ever written one or received one in a one-to-one communication. Yet, if I didn't tell you to drop all those HTML emails, we would go in and we would build full HTML templates in a one-to-one methodology. So the moment that person opens it up and they see a full HTML, we're not fooling them. Right? They know that email was not crafted just for them. Right? This is a one-to-one nurturing experience. So email templates, use rich text, not full HTML. You will see your engagement rates go up dramatically, I promise. All right, next is strategy. Nurturing is not, I'm going to take this person from stage one and produce at the other end of this nurturing campaign a hot lead. That is where most people go wrong. Right? What you should do is understand that your goal for nurturing is to move somebody from one stage to the next. My goal should have been to take that girl from, I have no clue what marketing automation is and I need better segmentation, to the way to do better email marketing is through nurturing or some type of segmentation or automation. Then once she understands what her actual pain point is, then she will start trying to get buy-in from internally in the organization to then get the tool to help her accomplish that. Then she'll go and look at vendors. So make sure your subject lines are tailored to the stage they're in, the content is tailored, and the strategy is to move them from stage to stage, right? So think about all the different types of strategies that you actually need. So let's say you come back from a trade show, you have a cold list, right? Your goal should not be, let's take that cold list and nurture them into a sales-ready state. It should instead, the strategy should be, how do I find out what stage each of these people are in so that I can nurture that stage effectively? Does that make sense? The next thing should be, all right, well, what if I have salespeople and they have a lost deal? Well, the idea should be, how do I stay in front of that lead over the entire year until that contract comes back up? These are all the very tactical strategies of how you use nurturing, right? It's not a one-size-fits-all mentality. And finally, your audience, right? You got to make sure you talk to the audience in stage basis. I'm not a big fan of personas. I don't think anyone ever says, I'm a CFO, so I read the CFO guide. I say, I'm an individual, I have a question. How do I get that question answered? Right? So always kind of keep those things in context and then remember to nurture to your audience. Perfect.
Great. All right. Another huge reason folks use marketing automation is lead capture. So by lead capture, how many of you have forms on a website, even if that's just an email subscription form? Great. All right. Well, with lead capture, that email address is very powerful because you can associate that email address to a specific person, and it's really fun when my clients get their lead capture going. They get really excited and say, oh, Chelsea just filled out our form on our website. Now we can track her and see that she's clicking on our tweets sent out by Pardot or your marketing automation platform, and so on. So what do you need for this lead capture? Content. You got to have content. Folks aren't just going to fill out a form and, give you their email address for no reason. Have great content. Our marketing team at Pardot, Maureen in the middle here, and Ryan and Isaac are all on Pardot's marketing team, and they create outstanding white papers and webinars and tips and tricks that get people to actually give them their email. I don't want to give you my email address unless you're going to give something to me. So you're going to capture leads if they give them content, and content relevant to them. Fields, form fields. What information do you want from them? Decide, and this is where, again, you need to align with your team. What's going to be most important? Is their first name and last name important? Sure. But is industry going to be an important field for you? Make sure that you have that. And then you can actually use a tool called progressive profiling. For each time they come back to their form, they're going to see different fields on that form. And you can get more information from them as they get more information from you. And then lastly, assignment. So these leads come in, and if you do have a sales team, which some of you may have very small companies where everything is going to get assigned to one individual, or maybe you're working for yourself and you follow up with everyone, but assignment is going to be important. Or just figuring out what to do with these folks when you do capture them. Great, Bob's come to our website and filled out a form to download our white paper, but who's going to follow up with him and what track is he going to be put on? So lead capture is a great use of marketing automation. Tracking. We talked about tracking code at the tech setup, right? So there are really kind of two different parts to tracking. First is first party. So this is your website. You can see who's coming to your website, who's filling out your forms, right? Everything's right there. You own everything. So that's going to be first party, which is very powerful. There's also a second one that I think a lot of people, including my clients, tend to forget is third party. So you can actually use marketing automation to track other websites. So you can take any URL on the internet, regardless of whether you own it or not, and actually put it in your marketing automation platform to see if your prospects are clicking on it. So for example, you may have a report that includes a Fast Company URL, and you're sending that out in a PDF. Well, before our marketing automation, you couldn't really track that, right? But you can now put that URL in your marketing automation platform, maybe name it November report, and see that folks are clicking through on that, and see that specifically Katie Melick is clicking through on that. So she may be interested in the content we're providing her. So tracking is a huge aspect that we see a lot of people love. And we have a great story of that.
So that's me, usually. Usually in a t-shirt and a ball cap. So I also have a brewery in Atlanta.
T-shirt.
Yeah, oh, yeah. So I have a brewery in Atlanta. It's called Eventide Brewing. So I do that on the side with me and some buddies. And so we also use marketing automation. So I'm going to say a little bit about how a small business in a B2C environment uses marketing automation, and specifically on lead capture. So if you go to our homepage, you're going to see this nice little thing. It said, want to know when our next beer hits the shelves. If you click yes, it's going to pop up a lead capture form. Now, why do I want this? I'm a B2C organization. I sell beer. I can't sell you beer directly. You can't even by law come to my brewery and buy beer from me. That's a whole nother riff I got. But anyways, the point being is what I want to do is I want to know each one of my fans. I put up a blog post once a week. I also do social media. I want to know who's engaging the most. That way then I can go and reach out to those people directly. If I want to go have a specific beer dinner, I'm going to go say, who are my most engaged prospects? I'm going to go email that invite to them. That helps me get that insight. Now this is first party. Now let's look at third party. So here's another idea. Who does video marketing? Anyone do video? Like use videos and content? All right, good. You guys should get on video. It's awesome. Your iPhone, by the way, is good enough to shoot video for business. So what you need to do is, so we host all of our videos in a tool called Wistia. Wistia is a video hosting platform. You might use YouTube, or you might have heard of Vimeo, these different types of platforms. Wistia allows me to do something called an email capture, or what I would call an enroll or third party. So if you guys are familiar with Twitter, what I can do is I can put a video card up on Twitter, and then I can hyper-target that. So now I can say anyone in this geo with these affinities are going to see this video. And what that allows me to do is when that video stops rolling, there's an email capture in my video. So if they want to know, and this was a promo video for a new beer I released, so if they want to know where that new beer is, they can drop their email in, and it'll get a map emailed right to them. So that's how we're using third-party and first-party lead capture. Right? So don't just think about capturing leads and information on your site, but think about using it wherever you're doing your marketing in different ways to engage. And remember, anytime they fill out these forms, that connects that individual to all of their primary activity. One thing we haven't really talked too much about is how do we identify Katie Mellick as Katie Mellick? How do we know that's her looking at that web page? One of two things has to happen. Either we sent Katie an email and she clicked on a link, because I know who I sent the email to, I can attribute that action, or she comes to a website and fills out a form and gives me her name. One of those two things has to happen. That's why lead capture is so imperative to your marketing automation plan. Hence content marketing, because you got to give them a reason to get something in return. So there you go.
Great. So in that, we're really focusing on our steps and in the 3 ways that we may use with nurturing, lead capture, and then tracking. All right. So in review,
you need to step back. I wanted to do a dance to this. I felt like they were dance moves, but I'm going to hold that back. We practiced this the other day, and I made up some really stupid stuff. I'll show you later if you're interested. But anyway, so step back. Just really get a good idea of what you want to do. Really have a very clear idea on what your processes are and how you plan on implementing those things. Slow down. Don't try to do it all at once. Remember, focus on your quick wins. Get the biggest ROI possible in the shortest amount of time so you can prove that value. And then finally, just focus on your steps. This is a tactical effort. Right? Be very tactical, be very detailed, be very diligent, and focus on those key steps, and you will be successful. If you don't do these things, you're going to have to go call a consultant, pay them a lot of money to fix everything. That's why a lot of consultants exist in marketing automation, is because people do it wrong when they start.
Great. All right. So we have a couple minutes. I'd love to open it up. And James, did you want me to pass this mic? Okay. So if you just want to, okay, I'll run up to you.
Oh, we've also got books, so I'll give books to people. I got 3 books, so the first 3 people that ask questions will give you a book.
Awesome. Thank you.
Just want a book.
You mentioned the ability to track the search term or keyword somebody used on a search engine and pulling that into marketing automation, but Google is now encrypting that. I'm wondering, do you have some secret way around that I don't know about?
There's no secret way around it, and so everyone's clear. If you were logged into Google, let's say that you use Gmail or anything like this, if you were logged into Google and you do a search, and you land on someone's website, Google now blocks the keywords that you use when you're logged into Google, right? So that stops me as a company from seeing exactly what keywords. Now, you still can see a mass. You can still see things of people that aren't, and you can use those as hints, but you won't get every individual. So you need to be more diligent on what you put on the page and what you're driving people to. And if you know you're driving somebody to this piece of content, and these are the keywords that are driving to that content, or that are optimized, that content's optimized for, you can kind of connect those dots, but you do make a good point. It makes it very difficult to see the exact term.
And we keep an eye on that. Our team's working around, I mean, Google only give you so much information, but we update our Google connections frequently, and are working on that right now to get the best information for you. So I know she raised her hand, and then he did next. So I know we have 3 books, but she had it just a minute ago.
I had two questions. Anita, sorry, my name's Anita. I'm from UPS. My first question was around nurturing a cold list. And I was just curious if you had any feedback on strategies for progressive forms, potentially, for doing that.
Oh yeah, you get a whole book full of this stuff. Yeah.
So that was the first question. My other one's unrelated, so maybe just one, but.
All right, so is the question more or less how do you use forms on nurturing a cold list?
So progressive forms specifically.
Yeah, is the question on nurturing those leads, or how do you use forms with those leads?
Oh, thank you. So to clarify, because we don't know anything about these people and we don't have any segmentation data on them,
Yep.
I was curious if the progressive form tactic is a good strategy to execute to try to understand a little bit more about these people without giving them a really long form of things that might not be relevant to them.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you the two things you need to know, and then in the book it'll detail it out it'll diagram it all out for you. So the first thing is you have a cold list. So the first thing I would suggest to do is what our goal should be is to figure out who's the most sales ready in that list, and then figure out where everyone else is and what stage. And once we do that, then we can nurture that interest in that stage. Right? So you do that by doing what I call a 3-2-1 technique. And then the second thing is, yes, progressive profiling is a must. But the difference is if you are emailing these people, you don't need to use a form. Because all you need to do is to get them to click a link if you already have their email. So I would say screw the form. You don't need it. But do have the form on your website and do use progressive profiling. So to help everyone else out, progressive profiling is that feature that says, I come to the website today. I see a form. I fill out 2 questions. The next time I come back, it recognizes me and it asks me 2 different questions. The next time it can ask me no questions. It depends on what you want it to ask, but instead of saying, let me ask you 25 questions and beat you into submission, because only really sales-ready prospects will fill out 25 questions, it takes a very different tack, but I highly suggest using progressive profiling in all forms.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No
And my second question was, I thought the technology to track third-party sites was really interesting. So I was just curious in how a brand might use that to track the visits to a potential, competitor.
All right, so let me clarify this one. So when we talk about third party, we're not talking about tracking the people's activity on the site. We're talking about people getting to the site. Right, so the biggest thing that you can recognize and realize inside of marketing automation is that everything is connected by a URL that's digital, right? If you have a URL, you can then track people that engage with that URL because marketing automation will let you have a tracking link, and you would then promote that link out. So hence, let me follow this right. So if you want to drive people to an Inc. magazine article, let's say you're building a nurturing program, and you don't have to use your own content. You say, hey, here's a great article I found on Inc. magazine about business writing. That's content held on Inc. magazine. I take that Inc. magazine URL and put it in my email, and I can track every time someone goes and reads that Inc. magazine article from that URL. I can't tell what they do after that, but I can tell that they went there. So a great thing is like if you're driving people from YouTube, or excuse me, from Twitter to YouTube, and you want to know how many people leave, you normally might use Bitly. Now you can use marketing automation, and then that all goes onto their central record. Yeah, no worries.
Hello. I'm just asking about the difference between email marketing for, say, retargeting and those that are, basically directories bought, through other means, either private or public email directories. I guess retargeting, they tend to be more successful once you've captured those emails address through whatever means. But they were captured through your website or through your marketing efforts in general. Do you feel like the success rate is very different between the two of them? And do you feel like those, those directories, email directories that are bought outside, are they going to fade away eventually? Or, how do you feel that? Because retargeting is it's probably more successful.
Let Katie take this one, and I'll put my 2 cents in.
All right, I've been getting that question a lot from clients, and actually on our first call we go over, I do not recommend buying nor renting lists. Again, there are ways to use marketing automation to attract the leads that are really going to be interested in your information and what you're saying, retargeting folks. Getting them at trade shows, it doesn't have to be specifically via a form, right? There could be a couple different ways. And if you do have partnerships and you're getting them maybe from Southwired, people that came here, if they would be interested in your company, and then that is a legit way. You have to think about it and see what works, but absolutely those folks that come in and are opting into your communication are going to be much better. And buying lists, you've got to be very, very careful because a lot of those emails are not relevant. And no matter what email platform you're sending them out of, the email client is going to see that, oh, this is bouncing, and that's going to hurt your IP in the long term. So you're going to set yourself up for a long-term hurt if you try to buy those lists and just have numbers. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I'll give you some more detailed data on that. So I just got done doing a research project with LinkedIn. So we looked at 7 million people in LinkedIn over 4 years. And we wanted to figure out what was the average churn of a B2B. And this is, no one's ever heard this data before because I'm giving this speech next week in San Francisco. But the point is, me and LinkedIn wanted to figure out what's the average churn on a B2B email address. The average churn is 17% per year. And the marketing and sales department and the technology field is 26% per year. So if you get an email list, every year it's going to churn on an average of 17% per year. So to Katie's point, if it's only 1 year old, if that email address is only 1 year old, 17% chance it's bogus. And then you keep expanding that out to determine how old that list is. Now, I do not, and I totally agree with Katie, do not buy lists and email them out, right? Here's 2 ways you can use that list, right? So you can go in and you can do a lookalike campaign, or you can say, I'm going to take that email list and go into Twitter and say, take all these people's email and I want to put a tweet in front of those people. You're not spamming them via email, you're just using that as a targeting methodology inside of social media. Then what you should do is you should use some type of video or some type of inline call to action that allows them then to convert if they want to. So you're getting a good idea, and then you're going to be able to bring in those people that actually want to have communication with you. So that's the best way I would use that. I would never email to that list specifically because it'll mess all your marketing up.
These are great questions. Do we have another one? Anyone? We got another book.
Yeah,
All right, here we go.
So we're currently using marketing automation, not with Pardot, but with another organization. And obviously, I'm new to the organization, and it's not been implemented well. Where do you suggest we start from here? If we've been using this program for 3-4 years now. So.
You want to start?
So I would go back and redid what we did, especially reviewing your current processes. Map it out, whiteboard it, see where, when you say you're going wrong, there could be a couple different ways you're doing it wrong, and that depends on your organization. But totally understand, and there are ways, getting an expert to help out, look over it, but really aligning your team and making sure you have a full vision of what is going wrong, and then stepping back and really following these steps is going to set you up for long-term success. But you may have.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 ways to do it. There's 3 ways to do it. Katie's way, which is do it yourself, step back, figure out, and I would suggest starting out with that. What was the original goal that we got this thing, and what is it morphed into? Why is it broken? Why is it not working? It's going to take some time to figure it out. You could then go and look at a consultant. There's a lot of people that know exactly where you went wrong and how to fix what you went wrong. But if you don't have the original goals in mind of what you're trying to accomplish, they really can't help out either. Regardless, probably what you're going to end up doing is ripping the whole thing out and putting it back in. So that's what we see a lot of times is when it's so messed up, it's better just to completely rip it out, go through an entire new process, get everyone else to buy back in, get everyone else to start from scratch as opposed to trying to fix things. You'll find a lot of times that, so in our department, it's a 26% turnover, right? So the odds are that if someone starts a marketing automation platform and it's been in place 4 years, the person that started it technically is no longer there. Is that the case? Yeah, so I mean, so their ideas and their things aren't there anymore. So you need to keep refreshing these things, but I would suggest just figure out what your goals are, figure out why you're not accomplishing those, and don't blame it on the tool first.
Yeah.
Try everything you can not to replace your tool with another tool until you know exactly what you need done. That's where a lot of people go wrong as well.
Yeah, talk to people. And there's great user groups. There are people using marketing automation that you can get with. It could be a consultant. It could be someone working for the platform. But Pardot actually has an awesome Atlanta users group. There's also AMA that they meet, and there's Matthew
we
actually
started a marketing automation specialist.
an automation. So you can sign up, go to those events, and just pick people's brains. That's going to be a great way. So go ahead. Oh,
yeah, one more.
I have the mic. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Joseph from Dodge Communications. You mentioned that you don't use personas. Could you maybe give an example of how you use questions to segment people, or what kind of other ways you think about that?
Yeah, so this is a topic that I have one stance on, and the rest of the industry has another stance on. So the stance is, and this is my debate, it is, do you use personas or do you use no personas, and use stages. And so the one concept is people say, hey, I'm going to use personas. That means that in my buying process, there is a CFO, there's a decision maker, there's a champion, and there's someone who does all the research. So I'm going to craft content specifically for each one of those people, right? I don't agree with that statement, and I don't agree with how that works, because if you run the numbers, let's do the basic math. So there's 4 people, there's 3 stages. Now how many products do you have, right? So now you need to have that many different pieces of content for that many different specific pieces of personas and that many different languages and types of talk, right? Because if you say I need to talk differently to a CFO than I do to a researcher, now you're looking at a massive amount of work. What I think is more impactful and it's much easier and a quicker win is to do things based off on stages. So I've written a bunch about this, and there's research that backs this up that I've done, but there's 3 basic stages in marketing's control, right? So there's the stage where they have a problem, they're going to start looking at things. Then they're going to go back to Google, they found out some stuff. Then they're going to go back and do more research, and then they're going to go back and make a short list and buy vendors. In that time frame, there's 3 stages that they go back to Google and they ask different things at different times. Right? In this entire process, lots of different people are involved, but they're generally trying to answer the same questions. They have the same questions, and it's a back and forth. Understanding not using form fields to figure out what their personas are, but using the basic cues to figure out what their questions are and then answer their questions. The same question is going to get asked by a researcher as it does a CFO or a CEO. How do I prove the value on this investment? Right? That is not a specific department or persona. That is a question that has to get asked, and you don't know who's going to ask it. But you know what questions will get asked, and you need to answer those questions. The only way to figure out where they are is to start looking at scoring, start looking at what content they build. If your content is not crafted to each one of the stages, you can't do this. If your website is not crafted these different stages, you can't do this. So what you have to start off with is an interview. Set up all of your current customers and say, I want to ask you, and I want to look at exactly what happened. When you went through, what was your original idea? What was the pain point you thought you had? How did you figure out what your actual pain point was? What was your process for evaluating solutions? You'll then figure out exactly what questions. Then look at your content and say, what content exactly answers that question? What do they find? What do they engage with? Then what that'll tell you is anyone else engaging with that content is in that same place. We're rational to a point. I'm not going to read a white paper unless it's interesting to the point in time that I'm at. Go back to that email. That girl is not going to open that email unless she's in that stage, right? Hence, with the same thing with content. And then to move them to the next stage, you always then, what I use is called the choose your own adventure concept. So then if they do read this piece of content, I'll give them two options on that piece of content or on that landing page or in that email. One, to continue in the stage they're in with another piece of content that is relevant to that stage, and one to the next stage. This allows them to say, hey, I want to continue to poke in this one direction, or I want to move to the next. Does that make sense? So that's how you figure out what stage someone's in. That's how you craft content for them and then move them through the cycle. Sorry, that was a long response.
Great. All right. Well, I think we're at about time. I'm sure you guys have another session to get to or something fun. So we'll wrap it up and really appreciate your coming. If you have any feedback, feel free to tweet us, or we can give you our emails or business cards. And keep in touch. Let us know if you have any questions after this session, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.